Thank you, Chair. Like I've already been introduced, my name is Paul Nleya from the University of Botswana, and I'm presenting a project called BEST Project, BEST for Botswana Expansive School Transformation Project. And I'll provide a background, then the BEST project and objectives, theoretical frameworks identified for the project, the methodology, outcomes and lessons that we learned from the project, summary findings and recommendations and conclusion. Presenting a project in 30 minutes it's quite a task, but I'll try to take you through that. In the name of background, the BEST project, you can see there that the S here is supposed to, it's not really BEST, that is a capital S and capital T, that's Botswana Expansive School Transformation Project. So that's a misprint, but this project was launched under the auspices of World Information Technology Forum during 2007, and it's a brainchild of WITFO Education Commission. During those days, WITFO was run in 8 commissions, and one of the commissions was the Education Commission, and WITFO 2005 was held in Botswana, and the project really was intended for the SADC region, which has not really materialized, but I'm very excited to present this project because the Education Commission had to present a project, and that project, according to the requirements of WITFO then, had to have a research component. So we conceptualized that as co-chairs during 2005, and we also presented the project at some other WITFO sessions like WITFO 2007 in Ethiopia and WITFO that was held in India. And basically, the idea there was to focus on teachers, to empower the teachers. Normally, in my own area, I'm in educational technology. I don't normally use ICT. I use educational technology instead because it's a more broader concept. Just to mention that the Stellenbosch Declaration also influenced the conceptualization of the project because it was also an IFIP expert group which identified 6 major areas, and the ones in red were our main focus, like learners and lifelong learning, and then the research component, and then the teachers, and also ICT use for integrating education in a real world situation. Objectives, really, we were looking at how we could really, do capacity building of our teachers in the schools regarding the use of ICTs or educational technology, and also to facilitate school transformation on creative uses of ICTs, and also to build some collaboration of human capacity, and this we thought could be an added advantage, like the keynote was talking of collaboration this morning. In the process of working out on the project, we came to know certain people that we could integrate, like University of Helsinki, because of the theoretical frameworks that they used, became a good target. But during WITFO 2005 also, we interacted with scholars. I saw also Professor Krishanti here. She presented a very illuminating, kind of conceptual framework, which we also integrated, the technocentric, from technocentric to socio-technical. Those also built the project. Established visual ICT tools for collaboration. We had the University of Mauritius participating, and they had a visual center for innovative technologies, and we had wanted to integrate them so that we could have a platform like that. And the idea really was not to transfer models of ICT use from developed countries, but we wanted to learn from them. So then we identified 10 pilot schools. I'll talk to that later. And the change laboratory method was identified as maybe a more pedagogically sound approach in this. And we also thought maybe there was need for an inter-organizational group. We called it a activity theory interest group in Botswana, so that as we learn, we get a kind of a group that will be the custodian of this transformation. And the ATIC group negotiated and directed the Change Lab activity in the project. Like you can see, a speaker from the university talked about this interest group, that really amongst ourselves, we had to come up with a multiple representation so that you see we could scale up these ideas across the board, according to that excerpt there. And excerpt number 2 there, another speaker from non-formal education, because we wanted this ATIG, this interest group, to be a broad-based kind of group. And that person also said it could be nice if we have already conceptualized ourselves as one thing, I mean different individual parts to make up this system. So basically that's what we wanted to do, so that you see we launch this change across the country using a wide range of people in the country. And we were inspired by Whitford Commission, and the Education Commission really, they launched this project. So we are also glad to be speaking to that project at another Whitford meeting. The theoretical frameworks really, like I said, as we were required by Whitford to integrate a research component to the project, then we started looking around. And when looking around, we realized that, you see, this notion of expansive learning theory. The expansive learning theory that, transformation doesn't come in one beat. It's an ongoing thing, it's a process. And we also identified the developmental work research as founded by Center of Activity Theory in Helsinki. They call it CHAT, Cultural Historical Activity Theory. That was one theory that we used. And AT originates from psychology, but nowadays it's a multidisciplinary paradigm, which has gained much popularity because of its concept of mediation, double stimulation, as we deal with higher psychological functions, because human beings really are supposed to be, different from other apes because of those functions. And the framework really was based on that, and we try to look at technology-mediated or technology-enhanced activities in education, translating that into the Botswana situation. That is it's an activity system model, which normally when you are doing the project, you have to know what is the instrument, like computers, what is the subject, the rules, community, division of labor, and what is the objective. So that at the end of the day, you map, that is a good map, showing the constituents of an activity within this triangular form. And it is within that you can identify the contradictions and provide a basis for this expansive reconceptualization of the activity. That's another, a framework whereby you see transformation, you chart the situation, recognizing the need for the change, analyzing the situation, how did we work in the past, and what do we want to do now? Creating a new model, then coming up with that new model, and concretizing and testing the new model, and implementing the new model, so that you can now spearhead and consolidate the change. So that you see, that's another, the expansive a cycle consisting of those 6 steps between practitioners, the community, organization, and academic interventionists, because our project really had a research component to it. Very similar to what my colleague was saying also, you know, because he also alluded to some of these aspects. Now, the methodology, according to this activity theoretical framework, we used the change laboratory method, which was also conceptualized and developed by Engström at the Activity Theory Center in Helsinki University. Basically, not to waste time, you start with the past. How did we do things in the past? And then you go to the present, and then the future. So basically, that is the basic picture idea, and then you can see also that model there. You map out that model, and then here you are also having video. All these activities from the past, present to the future, they are videotaped, and you also record them, you know, and then the researchers are there and the practitioners. So it's an ongoing process. So this is the method that we used, being assisted by our collaborators from Helsinki University. So we call it the Change Lab technique, which is an ethnography technique consisting 6 to 12 well-prepared weekly sessions of 2 to 3 hours. And the Change Lab is a novel research design for transforming work. And it's a tool and a method for crossing boundaries between academic research and practice of any field of study, of activity. So basically, that's how you cross these boundaries so as to cascade, so as to you know, bring about the desired transformation in the school setting. Data collection and limitations. So 3 of the 10 pilot schools were covered because of funding. There was not enough funding, but we did the Change Lab in 3 schools, and these 3 schools were represented a diverse school-based resources and culture. So when we selected the 10 pilot schools, we looked at the 5 regions and in the country, and we said, what are the critical challenges that we can pick from the schools and set up a national picture. So in other words, we wanted a national picture, but then we said that we cannot only look at the schools, we could also look at the ministry personnel so as to see who would support that. And again, due to the international partners' limited stay in Botswana, number of sessions were limited, and not much follow-up really activities were possible. But however, we managed to come up with you know, some outcomes and outputs. So in other words, funding situation really was a handicap. Outcomes. Looking at the first objective there of enhancing teachers' capabilities to perform as change agents in ICT era, teachers participated using mirror data, like in the Change Lab data. They analyzed and shared practices, including double binds and connected to work experiences. One lesson that we learned was that Change Lab developed teachers' activities and transformed and enabled boundary crossing from the old ways in the schools to new ways. The second objective, facilitating school transformations to create use of ICTs. Extending it, the study revealed that the extending of learning technology based on mobile technologies at one school, because the Change laboratories were not the same, but at one school, the extension of learning technology based on mobile technologies and capitalizing on lighter technological infrastructure was possible. Like prevalence of mobile technologies play an important role in accelerating transformation. So at this school there, in Botswana, children are not allowed to carry cell phones and whatnot. But in this particular school, we broke the rules and used all the cell phones to come up with what technology could do. And then, in other words, we ascribed to hybridization. using all these technologies, and it was possible to come up with something, because now the infrastructure was no longer like in the lab there, fixed, but it was mobile. Lesson 2, rather than waiting for overall transformation, create local ecologies of technology-mediated learning using valuable mobile technologies and provide models, frameworks. Yeah, so at this school, in other words, we were using technologies that were not really used on a day-to-day basis. Building human collaborative capacity infrastructure between Botswana and Helsinki. We conducted a needs analysis, and it was reported that a master's degree in educational technology was needed, was necessary, and in collaboration with our colleagues, we developed we developed to the satisfaction of partners a master's program geared to serve SADC. And lesson 3, establishment of a collaborative master's degree was using the theoretical frameworks that I've been talking about. Possible establishment of activity theory. There was an idea. At that moment, Helsinki University was helping University of Bath to come up with a center for activity theory. We had hoped that also maybe we would do an activity theory center at the University of Botswana, but that has not featured. Establishing visual ICT-based tools. It was revealed that institutional tradition of organizing teaching and learning and creative uses of ICT using novel ICT-based practice at one pilot school was possible. Another lesson, contradictions between democratic policy vision in the Botswana education, like the old tradition or regime whereby testing and examinations are the strong culture. Really, we could break away from that. I'm not saying we have done that, but there was a possibility. Overall application of new activity in school takes a longer time and calls for management of developmental activity, and change lab seldom brings dramatic immediate change. So, but the zone of proximality of possibilities, there was an example that really we could do the transformation given other things being changed also. So the 3 change lab varied due to regional circumstances in schools, and change lab was quite a promising method to use. I'm going to skip really, these are the schools. We use one school, we use another school, and then basically that is now a theoretical framework of what we did at the schools, packing those things now into a framework. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm being warned that basically the conclusion is that change lab processes were possible, and that well, hybridization brought new ideas and that we could pursue. But maybe to say that funding was a problem, and it was such a wonderful project, and unfortunately we could not raise funding to continue it, and I want to say thank you for listening. I've not done justice to the project, but I think I've given a synopsis of what featured. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll look forward for questions and comments, please. Microphone over there.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. As someone who's involved in the education sphere, I find it very interesting the way you've incorporated in your project the mobile devices into your sort of like the system you're working with. We did encounter one challenge, however, where I don't know what your perspective is, like when you now have mobile devices providing sort of like education on demand, the same way you have content on demand. How is that affecting the learners? Because we found that we have a situation now where learners don't feel the need to learn because they have access to, for example, things like Wikipedia. And so education is now becoming sort of education on demand. So you now have learners who they become so dependent on the mobile devices that separated from them because they don't feel the need to learn the information because they have constant access to something that will provide them that information. Did you encounter any challenges around that sphere? Just, yeah.
The last part again, I didn't get your last part.
Oh, okay. I was saying, did you encounter any challenges around the sphere of where education is becoming very similar to content on demand, where learners don't feel the need to store information in their minds per se, but they feel like they can always rely on a mobile device to provide them that information whenever they need to learn, or whenever they need to answer a sort of question or something of that sort?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether I got your question well, but the idea really was that we wanted to take an opportunity to think aloud and see what we could do in order to transform our schools. We know that our schools are exam-oriented. You know, you teach, the bell rings, you go to the other lesson and so forth and so forth. We were not satisfied as educators that that was the right thing to do, because we've got English medium schools where you find that they teach according to projects. They just integrate the whole curriculum. We know that. But in our own context, we wanted to convince our government that, you see, there are other models of doing it. So whether education for demand or what, but we wanted to come up with a structure that we could now convince our government that I think this is not the right way, but maybe we could transform and take our education system from this tradition, from this old way of doing it, to another level. So basically that is what we wanted to prove. And I think we went a long way. You know, maybe what I could say, through collaboration with Helsinki, we have now a book published on how to conduct a change laboratory. So a whole book. And we have, you know, academic publications from this project. And at the presentations, when we present, people don't remain the same. They realize that, you see, things can be done differently. Thank you.